Welcome to MenopauseWize, your go-to podcast for all things evidence-based in the menopauseverse. I am Dr. Supreet Patel, an MD gynecologist, a menopause health advocate, a postmenopausal woman, and the founder of MenopauseWize. And I'm so excited to have you join us on this journey. Whether you're a healthcare provider looking to stay on top of the latest evidence-based practices, a woman navigating your own perimenopause or menopause journey, or a partner or family member eager to support a loved one, this series is designed with you in mind. Our mission through MenopauseWize is to close the menopause knowledge gap by bringing you the latest research, expert insights, and practical advice, empowering you to make informed decisions about menopause and perimenopause. In this episode on sunscreens and skin health in perimenopause and menopause, we are thrilled to welcome Dr. Deepti Ghia, a highly accomplished dermatologist and trichologist at the South Mumbai Dermatology Clinic and at Jaslok Hospital, Mumbai. She is also an honorary consultant at the A.K. Munshi Charitable Trust and has been trained at some of the most prestigious institutes in the country and abroad. Dr. Ghia is not only a dedicated clinician, but also a passionate researcher and innovator in dermatology, earning numerous prestigious awards. She is also an active member of various dermatology associations, including being the treasurer of the Vitiligo Foundation of India and convener of the IADVL Vitiligo Task Force. So welcome, Dr. Ghia, and thank you for joining us today. We're extremely fortunate to listen to what you have to say about sunscreens and menopause. So let's get started with the basic question. Is it more important to look after our skin at menopause when it comes to sun damage? And why?
So, first of all, thank you, Supreet, for getting me on this, Instagram live. This is the first time I'm doing an Instagram live, so it's really exciting for me. But I'm going to give you what information I have and what we do in our day-to-day practice. And I'm going to try to make this as practical and more useful for all the viewers. So the first question that you said is, you asked was about sunscreens and what after 40, what happens, or what age group do you start, what do you do with sunscreen? So I think sunscreens are something that now, after the research that has happened, it's part of our normal routine from our 20s. But yes, after 40s, what happens is that as you know, the hormone changes kind of set in, and then conditions like pigmentation, melasma, and all these are photosensitive conditions. So the role of sunscreen becomes much, much more important. And especially when we have our, normally our city life, in city life, or when you're doing day-to-day work, the sun exposure is limited. But when you go for trips, it goes up. Also, what happens is that when you have the going and coming part, when you're traveling, that part is where the sun protection is very, very important. So in certain parts, it is important to make sure that you're well covered and protected from the sun, because it increases all these photosensitive conditions.
And when you say, going in and out, like the usual belief is that you need to wear sunscreen only if you're stepping out of the house or going directly under the sun. But is it important otherwise as well? Or should we be putting sunscreen only if I'm not stepping out of the house? Do I need to use sunscreen?
So that's a very important question, because nowadays you'll see the sunscreen labels which say blue light protection, protection against other factors. So it's not only the sun which is a problem. We are all now very heavy on devices. So like our laptop screens, then the mobile screen, the light that's above our LED light, all of them have a lot of the blue light. That is the blue part of the UV spectrum. And if you see the UV spectrum, it's divided into two parts. That is the UVA and the UVB, and then there is UVC. Now, the UVC is actually filtered out because, that's the ozone layer that helps us. It's the UVB and UVA which reach. Only 5% of the light that we get is UVB, and 95% light is UVA. Now, UVA is something that goes much deeper into the skin, and it is the main cause of aging, pigmentation. It directly goes into the DNA, causes the DNA changes of aging. Whereas UVB is more superficial, causes more of superficial changes and cancer causing spectrum. But most of it is actually protected. Even a glass, like in a window, if you have a glass there, UVB is filtered out. And there is the most interesting fact about sunscreens is that when they say about SPF, that is your sun protection factor. Now that is how much the sunscreen protects you against UVB. But see, the irony here is only 5% of your spectrum is UVB. And UVA is where you see the PA plus rating or boot star rating. These are the UVA protection. And most of the times when we are looking at protection against all these conditions, you are actually looking out for UVA. So it's like, but most people say, oh, SPF 100 is amazing. Like they think like that. But that's the big myth around
Wow.
SPFs.
Wow. That is crazy. So you're saying basically when we look at a sunscreen and it's saying SPF, let's say like whatever the number is, we are actually only blocking out UVB with that sunscreen. And so we are protecting ourselves against cancer, which is usually skin cancer is less common in like brown people, right? Like,
Yes.
yeah. But at the same time, we are not protecting ourselves against the effects of aging. So if I'm looking for like wrinkle prevention, I'm not protecting myself.
No. If you see, I'm just going to show you a random label, okay, of a sunscreen.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you see, I don't know if you
Yeah,
can
I
see
can
it
see. Yeah,
clearly.
SPF 50.
So,
Yeah.
So SPF 50, and then there is a PA
Yeah.
rating. So SPF 50 is telling you that it blocks almost around 97% of the UVB light.
Mm-hmm.
That is the 50 SPF,
Yeah.
okay? And the PA is telling you that it's also protecting against the UVA ray. So that's why below this it says UVA and UVB. So this is how you can, tell how a sunscreen is working. So you have to see both UVA and UVB protection. And in day-to-day life, SPF 30 is good because it gives you 95% blockage of most of the rays for the UVB. And if you go up to SPF 50, then the protection goes to 97%. You go up to SPF 70, it goes to 98%. So, the difference after 30 is not very significant. So, if you have a good sunscreen, which is SPF 30, is good. But there is one good factor about higher SPF, is that if you have a SPF 70, then what happens is that it can last you longer in terms of normally a 30 SPF would last you for 3 hours. But when a 70 SPF decays over 3 hours, then the effect will be SPF 30.
Understood.
So 70 to 35, right? So then you have a little longer cover. So you don't have to keep reapplying the sunscreen. So higher SPF will give you a little better protection in terms of less number of applications because of the decay factor. But
got it.
Still, it's always advisable. Like for all my patients, the rule is 8 o'clock, 4 o'clock, again. So 8, 12, 4, sorry. 8 a.m., 12 noon, 4
Wow.
p.m. This is how you put the sunscreen.
And what if I'm someone who is exposed to bright lights even at night? Let's say there's someone who's working in the film industry and doing shoots at night, and then does wearing sunscreen also then become important at night?
I think so. It's all about light protection. So
Right,
it's important that you protect whenever you know that you are being exposed to like a light. If you're getting in shooting and all, you definitely get heavy lights there.
Right.
So
Right.
it's good to put sunscreen whenever you're exposed to photo sources.
Wow. And what about so basically what you're saying is like if we are using it day to day, 30 is enough, SPF 30 is enough. That's one. Only the larger SPF numbers provide us with protection for longer duration, but doesn't mean it's giving us better protection from the rays. Not the increase in protection is very marginal. It's not as much. But also to look at the UVA protection, and that's like the PA. And you said there was another parameter,
Boot
PA plus plus plus.
rating. and boot star
star
rating.
rating. Okay. So these are the two things that our listeners should be looking for while choosing a sunscreen. Okay, all right. And we should be reapplying every, you said 8, 12, 4. So that's like a good regime to have.
Yeah.
All right, great. When we're choosing a sunscreen, you mentioned the SPF factor and you mentioned choosing your protection against UVA rays. What about sunscreens which say physical and chemical protection? Do they um, what do they mean, and which one is safer to use?
Okay. So, now there are two types of sunscreen. There are physical sunscreens and chemical sunscreens. So, physical sunscreens are usually mineral based. So, they are iron oxide, titanium oxide, zinc oxide. These are the ones which are giving you protection against the sun by using physical method, like they reflect the light off. So, they form a layer on top of the skin and they just work to reflect the light. But the chemical sunscreens, they get absorbed into the skin, they cause the changes, and then that absorbs the, it reflects, absorbs the spectrum and doesn't let it go to the deeper layer. So that's how the the mineral sunscreens work, the chemical sunscreens work.
Right.
So you have two types, so most of them nowadays, you have chemical component and a physical component mixed together, and that's why you get these combos.
Understand. So basically, you have so the physical ones don't get absorbed. Would they be safer to use? Because the whole concept that something's getting absorbed in my skin, is it safer to use physical ones versus chemical ones, or it doesn't matter?
No, so there are differences. Now, in chemical, there are certain chemicals like, there are something like para-aminobenzoic acid, PABA it's called. So they are now not recommended. Sometimes you have other chemical sunscreens which are not recommended in uh, in this chemical side also. But there are some of these, studies which are saying about titanium dioxide also getting absorbed and causing DNA changes. So both ways there can be risks. So it's always being studied more about sunscreens. But iron oxide, which is which has been used for many years in other conditions also, is pretty safe. So that's why they are using that as one of the spectrum. But titanium dioxide is not so safe, but it is the smallest molecule, so it doesn't give the white cast effect, whereas the zinc oxide is giving a white cast effect. So to negate that, currently there's a improvement in the industry that they do micronization. So they make them so small, the particles, that you don't get a white cast effect with these mineral sunscreens anymore.
Understood. So basically, you could be using physical, chemical, or a mix of them.
Yes.
So when it comes to physical and chemical, you just explained what that means, but you see the white cast which appears on a lot of sports people when they use it. Are those then the physical sunscreens
Yes.
that they're using?
Yes.
Would it be safe to use certain sunscreens are made only for babies? Would they be like the safest thing? Usually I feel like, oh, if I have to use something which is made for babies is probably safe for me as well. So would that be like a good guideline to follow, or it doesn't protect us enough?
So this is a very, very good question that you're bringing out, because our mindsets are so this thing now. Okay, baby stuff is better. Baby shampoo is better than normal shampoo, because but I think that's just a myth, because baby products are designed for baby skin, which is different from the adult skin. The amount of exposure a baby gets in the sun is much lesser than what adult will be getting. Also, sunscreens are not recommended under 6 months of age. So it's only above 6 months, and what is recommended above 6 months is zinc oxide. That's the physical sunscreens are recommended and studied. Um, and usually what happens is baby stuff is more related to not being tear free. It should not give them irritation. It's also safe that if it goes in their mouth, it's safe, but it doesn't mean that it's better
Hmm.
or it gives you more protection. Okay, so you have to find sunscreen that suits your type. Now, if you go into types of sunscreen, you have sunscreen which is in a cream format. You'll have a gel sunscreen. You'll have, lotion sunscreen, you have spray sunscreens, you have powder sunscreens. So these are different formulations in which you get sunscreen. So if you have an acne prone skin, then a gel based sunscreen is better. Then if you have a dry skin, then cream base is better. Also, if you have like a large body surface area to cover, that is like, hands, legs, you're on a holiday and you need to cover more, so that you can use a lotion base because that spreads easily. Then if you don't like creams on your face, then you can also use powder based sunscreens, which can be part of your makeup also. Like you get these, compact powders which have some SPF in it. Also, your foundations give you physical, because it has iron oxide in it. So it naturally becomes a sun protector, because physically it saves you from the sun. See,
Right.
nothing better than physical protection. If you see your own skin, if you look at the, a part like your shoulder, which is not much exposed to the sun, or you're wearing always clothes, you look at that skin and look at the rest of your skin, there's always a shade change. So, you can tell how much clothes protect you. So if you're, using a physical method of protection, like, wearing full sleeves while you're out in the sun, wearing a hat, a wide brim hat, like putting a coat, or, covering yourself up, that's better than any sunscreen, because it gives you first physical protection against the sunlight. The sunscreen then you put during that time is more for reflected light. So even from around you, from windows, there is a lot of reflected light that comes. So that's why the sunscreen gives you an extra protection. But outdoors, I always recommend to wear a hat, cover yourself up as much as possible if you don't want to get tan. Sometimes tanning, some people like the tan, so that's not a bad thing. It's just telling you that skin is protecting you from the bad UV rays and saving you from, all the changes, and that's why the tan comes.
Besides color change, like I think I love the fact when the skin gets a little, when brown skin gets tanned, it actually looks really beautiful, I feel. But if it is not for tanning, like let's say someone is not worried about the change in skin color, should one still wear sunscreen? Like, I'm not worried that I will become 3 shades darker if I roam around in the sun, but should I still be wearing sunscreen to protect it from cellular damage or some other damage?
Yes.
Considering brown skin again is protected, is sort of not cancer prone, should we still be wearing sunscreen? Is the question.
So if you have melasma, if you have
Mm,
pigmentary
mm,
changes, if you have, if you have family history of melasma, you may not have it, but you've seen your sisters having it, you've seen your mother having it. Then also, if you don't want, to age fast, you don't like, having crow's feet that come near the eye, you don't like frown lines, you don't like the skin looking wrinkled, then yes, because photo aging is a known phenomena where light increases the speed of aging. So if you'll see somebody who's working a lot in the sun, or somebody who lives high up on the mountains and they are not using sun protection, the UV index is very high there, they do get aging, like sun changes and wrinkles, much faster than the other people who are more working indoors. So
mm.
photo aging can be prevented by sunscreen and physical methods, like as I told you, saving yourself from the sun by caps and hats
Right.
and everything.
I've always wondered why we don't wear caps or hats in India. It's such a common thing in North America to just wear a hat when you're going out, and it's such a part of my gear when I leave the house over here. Also, it feels like the sun angle is much harsher here when the sun is out, if it is out.
Yes.
But in India, it just seems to be a not done thing. You don't see many people with walking around with a hat.
Yeah.
Probably a cultural thing, but it'll be amazing to protect our skins with that, with
Yeah.
just that little barrier.
Yeah.
So perhaps something for everyone to do. You mentioned melasma. For the knowledge of our listeners, could you please explain what melasma is and why is it relevant at perimenopause and menopause?
So melasma is like a pigmentary change that you see on the face. You get coffee colored patches on the face, which don't seem to go with anything. They are very stubborn and resistant, and they start with a just light shadow. and then they start becoming darker. So in Hindi, it's already also called chaya. Chaya means shadows, so you get those on the cheeks, near the eyebrows, near the upper lip, all these places which it starts getting connected to the under eye area. So it gives you like a stark demarcation of a patch on the face, and that is what melasma is. It's usually seen either during childbirth, or it can be seen second peak is during menopause time, and it happens because of hormonal changes that we see. And what happens is that it starts coming as a light colored patch, and then as you go in the sun it gets darker. Or there are sometimes creams that we put which have hydroquinone in it, helps to lighten it temporary, but the minute you stop it becomes darker. So you be aware when you're using creams for you're putting creams for your melasma. You should avoid hydroquinone based creams unless given by prescription for some time. But most people I see, they use it for very long because that's the only thing that makes it keep going. And then overall, then you develop ochronosis, where there's permanent deposition of pigment under the skin into the dermis, and then there is no treatment for it. So currently, melasma can be managed very well with tranexamic acid and topical other agents. Like sunscreen is still the backbone of treatment of melasma, but there are some skin lightening agents which do help. So I don't think it's now there are a lot of new molecules that have come up, so it's really a good phase for patients having pigmentation because it can be managed with lasers like Q switch laser, and then it can be managed with creams and then sunscreen. So you can almost make the melasma kind of go so light that socially not visible, but it never goes. It kind of, when you look for it in the mirror carefully, you will see the bottom. So it's something it's your friend for life, but we can control it so well that nobody else can see it.
Well, that's really good to know. So so the first thing would be prevention. Let's say if you said that if your mother or sister has melasma, I become more prone to developing it, right? That's
Yes.
what you said. Now,
Yes.
if I know that someone else had it, let's say I have not had it during pregnancy, I can still develop it at menopause?
Yes, you
So
can.
if I develop it, say at perimenopause when estrogen is going all haywire, and if I develop it at or if I'm not even developing it, but I've seen my sister develop it or my mother develop it, would wearing sunscreen routinely protect me from developing it?
Yes, it will. So
Okay.
there are studies which say that sunscreen helps to at least further worsen it, so it will not become dark if it's to come. But it may come. You can't stop it from coming, but at least you can ensure that it's not visible.
Understand. And the other part is you said that it reaches a stage where it goes into the dermis, which is the deeper layer of the skin. And at that point, there is basically its point of no return. There's nothing much that
Then
can
it
be done.
really damages the skin in terms of the dark, pigment, which is really different from your normal skin type. Then it's very difficult to even conceal it with makeup. So
Hmm.
then that's the phase where you don't want to go.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's why it's important not to use random creams, steroid based creams. Somebody's using it, so I'll also use it.
Hmm.
Don't do, I mean, that, because it can damage your skin. Like most people are not scared of creams. They'll be
Hmm.
worried of taking a paracetamol, but they'll put creams like, there is
कुछ
no
भी लगा दो.
problem. They'll not worry that there's a steroid in it, there's hydroquinone in it. They'll not worry about that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
they'll think it's natural. Somebody is giving them a cream which is in an unlabeled box.
Hmm.
Okay, use this for melasma. This is very common because most people give these steroid creams with hydroquinone for melasma because it really vanishes that initial 15 days you put it.
Hmm.
So they will be very happy to put a labelless cream on your face and
Hmm.
then look at the side effects afterwards. You can have like, dilated blood vessels, thin skin. It always gets sensitive to light.
Hmm.
All those changes can be seen. So I would really, be aware of putting anything that doesn't have a label on it to understand what you're putting.
Right. No, that is such useful advice. So basically, you're saying prevention is great, but if you start seeing early signs, then start getting treatment earlier. Don't wait for it to become like permanent patches to get it. But there is hope. It's just about the right timing and monitoring it with someone who's qualified and who can deal with it, right?
Yes.
So yeah. And I think that's really important. That just dealing with those boxes which say, especially when an industry is not regulated, that fear of using something that says uh, it's a chemical versus something that just says, oh, it is natural, but doesn't have a list of ingredients on it. It is so common and it is so scary because it also happens in our little world of hormone therapy where people will use something which is compounded in some local little back, at the back of someone's house, but they will not use something which has a proper label on it because it sounds like a
Yes.
chemical. So that is really useful information. You mentioned about using sunscreen as your daily routine. As a woman over 40 or someone who's at premature menopause, what should be my daily routine? You said 8, 12, 4 is great. I think that I'm going to like memorize this because it's wonderful. 8 for 8 for 8. No, 8, 12, 4. It's not so hard, but yeah, 8, 12, 4. I think
Yes.
ladies, I think we should just follow this 8, 12, 4 routine to just make sure that we've got sunscreen with us. But
I
considering
would just like to
yeah.
tell you something here, that suppose somebody is not worried about
Mm,
wrinkle lines, they're not getting exposed too much, and if they are not using sunscreen, it's not so bad. Like
mm,
people make it sound really, oh my God, you're not using sunscreen. It's not so
mm,
bad because
mm,
it's also very industry driven, this whole thing. But if you're outdoors, you are doing a trek, you're on the hike, you are constantly in front of bad light, then yes, it makes sense. But
mm,
there is somebody who's like, who can easily draw the curtains in their house. You don't have too much
mm,
light coming in. You're good. You don't have to layer yourself like that unless you're going out. So, it's not so, scary that,
yeah,
you have to put sunscreen
yeah,
and this, but you have to understand when you have to put sunscreen.
right.
What are you exposed to? And that is a smart way of using sunscreen, because if you see how it's promote, like, how the science behind sunscreen is, that you need 30 ml of sunscreen for one application to cover neck to toe. Okay, if you're covering
Mm,
a full body,
mm,
like, you need like 6 ml for the face, and like, 3 ml on your hands, and then 6 ml on the feet, then chest and back. So if you calculate everything, it comes up to be 30 ml. So if you have a
mm,
100 ml bottle,
mm.
you will finish in 3 days.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So if you're going to cover your full body with sunscreen and you want to do it ideally, it's like 2 milligram per square centimeter of sunscreen. That's when they make these labels, that water resistant when, or how much protection when you put 2 milligrams per square centimeter of your skin. So if you have 1 square centimeter, it needs 2 milligrams.
Wow. And who is reading that? Like none of us read that, right? We just see that little fine print over there saying protected against wrinkles or whatever else that it did. But none of us read how much you need for it to
Yeah.
actually
So you
prevent.
need
So that's yeah.
almost like 2 teaspoons, of
Wow.
sunscreen. One, that will help you to protect
Wow.
everything, at least the exposed portions which are normal there.
Wow. That
And
that is crazy.
so then most people end up using very little sunscreen.
Mm,
So what I practically tell my patients is, when you are out, please wear your hat, cap, umbrella, whatever you
mm,
want. Cover yourself up.
mm.
You know, for a dermatologist, the biggest fear is the sun, because how much we've been told about the sun effects and then the use of sunscreen. So wherever you'll see, if there's a group of dermatologists, they'll always be in the shaded area somewhere. That is it's like a becomes a second nature. So always think of physical protection also, and only on those cases where you're really like in a competition and you're in the sun,
Yeah.
like you have to do this trek and you're in the sun. That's when you like really put good layers and save yourself nicely.
Understood. No, that's pretty wise. Don't be obsessed about the sunscreen, but definitely be sensible about when to use it and how much to use if you want to actually protect yourself. So that is great advice. But about using physical barriers, doesn't that become kind of against the whole exposure to vitamin D? And considering we are all vitamin D deficient and we are suffering from so many of its impacts, its importance has been highlighted, and not only for the bone but for all metabolic processes. Doesn't that make it kind of anti-vitamin D, putting
So
sunscreen and covering ourselves?
it's again very, very important. But if you look at your whole body and your face and your neck area, okay, what percentage is your face and neck if you do the rule of nines? Okay, it's hardly this much. Your skin is there everywhere.
Mm,
You can wear shorts and you can wear like a sleeveless and get sun from your hands and legs if you
mm,
want, really. But you don't need it on the face per se. So sunscreen, I mean, vitamin D you can make from any part of your skin if it's exposed to the sun. Though you will age on those parts faster, like if your
mm.
hands can get more wrinkled, your legs can be more wrinkled. And also with the current, you know, availability of 60,000 international units of vitamin D once in a month, it's just one shot and you kind of get your levels normal.
Right.
So you have to see what is more practical for you and what makes sense. But even if you like to make natural vitamin D, it needs a lot of sun exposure, not half an hour of walk which will give you the sun exposure. You really need to be outdoors and for a long period of time. But in that also you can save your face at least. You
Yeah.
don't want the face to get the
Yeah.
signs.
No, you're right about that. And most of us are not spending that much time outside in the sun. We are glued to our desks very often and exposed to that light. And B, you are absolutely right. It's sensible about making it from other parts of your body, but also um, most of us are deficient anyway. I don't know anyone who actually has normal vitamin D levels anymore without any supplement. So supplementing is easy, and anyway, most of us are supplementing. It's just about fine tuning it. So yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned rule of nine. What is the rule of nine?
Just the body parts, no? Like 9% is your legs, 9% is your. So it's just the face is just like, the 9%
9%.
of the body. You have
Understood.
81% body surface area of the skin, which you
Understood.
can make.
Right.
Skin is the largest organ
Mm,
of the body.
mm.
So the face skin can be always saved.
Right. Right. Yeah, yeah. That's a great way to look at it. The face skin is ultimately just 9%. Wow. It's only 9% and it gets 99% of the attention or more.
Yes,
So,
yes.
disproportionate amount of attention for that much of skin. But it's so important because that's what everyone's going to see. So, yeah. So, yeah, coming back to our daily protection, I was asking about because the menopausal skin or women at perimenopause tend to get drier skin, would there be like a routine that you would recommend? If I were to start my morning, I washed my face. Washing your face. Should the first layer be sunscreen or should it be a moisturizer? Because sometimes you see these like 10 products in the market and you're wondering like, what am I supposed to put on my face every day? So yeah, if you could tell
So
us about that.
I think first important thing is cleansing. So you
Mm,
just cleanse the normal deposits that have been collected over your skin. So first part of any routine should be cleansing. Then, toners used to be there when we used harsh soaps, that, alkaline soaps that would form residue. So you needed toners to get them off because, the harsh soaps are there. Now the most of the soaps are 5.5 pH. So
mm,
that balances what the face has. So that is your normal skin pH. So if that's balanced, it does not form residue. So toners are actually not needed. Then you can straight go in for moisturizing because that's, repairing the barrier. Because of cleansing or day-to-day use, you want to repair the barrier with with a cream. So moisturizing cream or gel or lotion, whatever works according to your skin type. And then the last layer should be the sunscreen. If you're using any actives, then that should go before the moisturizer. If you're using, let's say, vitamin C serum, then you can do that uh, before, in that way. But the last application is always the sunscreen. On top of that, you can put makeup. So there are tinted sunscreens also available that work like makeup based foundation itself. So your foundation is the layer of sunscreen, and then you put makeup on top.
wow. Okay. All right. So basically, clean, moisturize, sunscreen, and
Yes.
makeup if you need with
Yes.
it, and you can use makeup which does have some sunscreen as
Protector.
well. But then again, look for. I will have to check my sunscreen whether it has any of these PA plus plus plus. So that's something that homework for me to do today. So this was great information on sunscreens. Is there anything that you think we missed out, or any repeatedly in your practice do you see some repeated problems with the use of sunscreen, or myths about sunscreen, people who discontinue to use sunscreen because they face trouble, or anything in your experience that you'd like to share with us about the use of sunscreens, in especially our
So,
age group or my
so
age group? Yeah.
one thing is about water resistance. So, when you're going swimming and if you use a sunscreen which does not have the label of water resistant, then it's not going to help you. Most people go swimming and that's when they put sunscreens. I know in India, at least the thing is that everybody, when they go swimming, they think of sunscreen, or they are on the beach, they think of sunscreen. So that time, just look out for the water resistance in your label. Second thing is that, sunscreen should be something that, you should be liking the way it feels on your skin. So you may have to try different types. Sometimes, you have to use from gels to creams to lotions, to see what is working best, what is not making your eye water, what is looking good on your skin and not making you look dark. Sometimes sunscreen make you look darker. So most of my patients who are like brown skin, they want to remove, not wear sunscreen, because if they tell me that when I wear sunscreen, I look 2 shades darker.
Mm,
That's obviously the light reflectancy of some of the products,
mm,
of how they sit on your skin. They make you look more darker than what you are. So then that's a big discouragement from them. So
mm.
then I have to change the formulation for them, and that works.
Okay.
So, there may be some trial error needed to find the right kind of sunscreen that work with your lifestyle, with your skin type, with your use, how much you need. So it has to be tailored to your requirement.
Understand.
And other thing about sunscreen is a lot of people have a lot of information about cancers and sunscreen, but it's still very, very nascent, like whatever things are coming up, they are not very, rampant that, oh, everybody who use sunscreen is getting cancers. In fact, for prevention of melanomas, for prevention of basal cell carcinoma, for prevention of squamous cells which happen on the face, sunscreens are part of the, regimen.
Right.
So, now a lot of things have, like, certain, because this is an industry which has so many things mixed together. Now some of the components can be cancerogenic, so not everybody will have it. So you need to check your labels. Sometimes people will say, oh, this is a really good sunscreen, but when you check the label, you find that it's not. I mean, it has all the average ingredients which are any sunscreen, but because it's marketed well, you feel that
Mm.
it's the best sunscreen in the world. So, we need to get, like, uncover one thing, like how we have an old book, you remove the dust and you see what you want to see properly. It's like that.
But how does one look into it? Like you go to a shelf that has sunscreens, right? And
Yeah.
the writing is so small, and there are like 50,000 ingredients, not 50,000, let's just say 50.
Yeah.
50 ingredients on it. Like, which are the ones that I should say, like you said, Pava, don't use the ones which have Pava.
Yeah.
Are there
Yeah.
like any kind of big no's? Like, if you see this on that list, if you can manage to read that list, uh, definitely don't buy this. Like, the clear ones,
So
don't buy.
the current ones have been, like, there's not fixed like that. One is, there's oxybenzone, which is the most common to cause contact dermatitis. So it can cause irritation. So some people get irritation with sunscreen. Most common ingredient of that is oxybenzone. So that's a chemical sunscreen. So if you're getting irritation, you check whether your sunscreen has oxybenzone in it, and probably then you're allergic to it.
Mm.
So you then go for a mineral based sunscreen. The other thing is that mineral oils are, avoided. Parabens are something that you avoid. But again, parabens are there in a lot of products as preservatives in it. So it's very individual. Not everybody is going to get means our old tubes which have been there for last 50, 60 years in the market have parabens in it. Now
Mm.
we don't know where, how the number of cancers which are increasing. It's not very specific that, oh, it's because of sunscreen, it's because of plastic in your food, it's because of drinking water out of plastic bottles, it's because of eating food from, which is all having fertilizers in it. We really don't know.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's complex.
it's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
complex. It's not just one factor. I mean, when we study our patho in our second year MBBS, we definitely know that, one thing leads to another, and there are so many factors that play in a role when it's genetic, epigenetics, environment,
Yeah.
your skin predisposition to get things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think anybody has like one, holy grail saying that this is the safest sunscreen.
Yeah.
Now, it is not, I can't even personally say that this is the best sunscreen like that.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. And I think choosing products is, everyone usually asks. Oh, so like very often on Instagram, I face this, is basically to the question that which brand should I buy? And whether it's, lubricants or it is face cream, the point is it depends on you and depends on so many other factors. So
Yes,
it's always a personal choice, and having all this
yes,
other information that you've shared is important, and that is empowering, because then now I can decide what to buy based on what you have said and customize it to myself. So
yes,
yeah, that is great. What about use of sunscreens? I just thought about this very often. Like, you mentioned makeup. There's also sometimes now you see lip gloss or chapsticks or
yeah,
lip moisturizers which have SPF. Is it important
yes.
to use it on our lips?
Yeah, so again, people who have dry, chapped lips or they have discolored lips, then that helps because that prevents the tanning from the sun. So in
Mm.
fact, I have something, I probably got something to show. So this is, I'm just gonna try to mask. I don't want to show any
Yeah,
brands or anything,
yeah.
but I'm just gonna show you how, this one is like a just a pot which
Mm.
has, lip balm
Lip
which
balm.
has 40
Mm.
SPF in it, but PA plus is only 2 plus. So again, this is like a, gives you little UV protection, more of UVB protection, but I don't know how much that will help. But at
Mm.
least those people who have pigmentation on their
Mm.
lips or who have discoloration, that's when I give them this as a lip balm, which has an added SPF more than your regular lip balm.
Understood. Understood. And these are, of course, then safe for ingestion because they're on your lips. There's highly
Yes,
likely that
yes,
you will ingest it over time.
yes.
Okay, all right, wonderful. Okay, so ending this on a positive note, three messages for our listeners who are typically women in their perimenopause or menopause regarding the use of sunscreen and protection of their skin. So, three tips would be great for us. Thank you.
Okay. So one tip is that when you're going outdoors is the extreme important time that you must use the sunscreen. Okay, because that's where most of the changes happen. And suppose you save yourself for 30 days and 31st day you decide, okay, no, I don't want to use sunscreen, then the 30 days is waste because the melanin gets stimulated. I may want to show a diagram. I don't know if that works, if I can show
Well,
you. Like, does
uh,
this, can
yes,
you see
yes,
this?
yes. It will not
Yeah.
show on our podcast, but I will put in a link for listeners, people who only have
Sure.
the audio to it. Yes, yeah.
So there's a melanin that goes, I mean, this is your melanocyte, and this secretes a lot of melanin, which is secreted. The minute the sun falls on this melanocyte, even after 30 days of no sun protection, in one day it can produce enough melanin to cover the whole area because this is going to protect your skin. So this is regarding to the tanning bit. If those people who are using sunscreen to prevent tanning, then your one day of sun exposure will also get your tan back. So that is one important, you know, yeah.
That is
So this
amazing.
is,
All right, okay. But the ones who are not interested in the tanning bit, who are doing it for like wrinkle prevention and aging, for them
so
it's
they
okay.
also should more, but it's more about
Mm,
consistency, which will give you results.
right.
So make sure you're consistent with your protocols, like, putting sunscreens regularly.
Understood. Okay. Tip number two.
So tip number two is putting enough sunscreen, like, taking a proper coin size amount. If you take a, coin size amount, then tap it on your skin everywhere, then spread it out and then let it get absorbed for 5 minutes. If you still feel a little sticky, you could always use a powder on top to just dry it up. So give you a dry touch. So that's a good tip to use so that those people who don't like the oily feel of the sunscreen, you can do
Mm,
that.
all right. Okay. And the third one.
And the last one is that when you're choosing sunscreen, you need to make sure that everything is there. Like it's good to apply. It's meeting your requirements. It's not making you feel white cast effect is not there. It's not making you feel oily. You don't feel like remove. I mean, there's no itching, and it's also pocket friendly that you can keep doing it. You may be able to do a very nice sunscreen for a few days, and then you can't put it in your budget every month. Then it's not going to help. So make sure what you do is sustainable and something that can last you long term and can be part of your daily routine in the long run.
Wonderful. So trial and error is important in finally figuring out which one is right for me, and that may change as well, right? Like I feel when I'm in Vancouver, my skin's definitely more dry. It needs more, dense sunscreens, more moisturizing. And then when I'm in Mumbai, it's so sticky that you don't want to use the same sunscreens. I guess that also, while traveling, people will need to change what they're using.
So
So
that's why
that,
you have gel based spray. But spray sunscreens don't work very well. So it means they look very fancy, but they have a lot of those chlorofluorocarbons in it to make it more flowing on the skin. But effective wise, I don't feel they are very effective. So might as well use just simple lotions and creams and gels is what I prefer to give.
wonderful, wonderful. That is great information, and I'm really confident that this is going to help a lot of people figure out what's lying on their dressing table as far as sun screens go, because most of us are confused when we enter that aisle at which one am I supposed to buy. But I think trial error and using all the information that you've said and putting it into practical
And
use.
also, maybe just seeing a dermat once
Yeah.
will help you to, they'll give you the right recommendations which are available in your city, in your place. And it's not about if you have a problem only, then you have to see one. A lot of times we have a lot of patients who come in just for setting their skin
Yeah.
routine and what things they can do. So if that's in place, then we can, then you don't need to keep going back, but at least you know what's going to work for you.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. Like I think seeing a professional is of such value, and it can be such a great investment in your skin, because instead of wandering around and buying 10 products, get the ones that the specialist thinks it is best for you. Also, things like if early changes have started as far as melasma go, at least I think that is a big one because of the impact it has on women. I have seen women who've had melasma, and it's distressing for them because they feel frustrated with it. And so I think like that preventing is so much more important, and seeking early help, like get the professional when you need even if it means getting a sunscreen. So I feel that that's something really important, and we will be sharing Dr. Ghia's contact details or clinic details at the end of the podcast, so that people who need your help get help at the right time. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much for this information. I'm really excited about all everything that you've shared, and you were difficult to catch on Instagram, but I'm so glad that we have. And Instagram
Yes.
and other social channels need people like you. I know you're busy, but it would be great to have you more out there,
Yes.
just because it's so helpful for everyone to listen to what you have to say. So
I'm only here because of you and your persistence, because you got me on board to come here.
I've been nagging you for way too long. So
That's great. That's
anyway,
great. But it's a good session that we had, and it's great
uh,
to be here.
thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. All right. Bye-bye. Bye. Thanks again for tuning in to MenopauseWize. Stay informed, stay empowered, and I'll see you in the next episode as we continue to navigate the menopause journey together. If you're a healthcare provider interested in collaborating with us or have insights to share, we'd love to hear from you. Please email us at info@menopausewize.com. That's wise with a Z. And before we go, a quick medical disclaimer. The information provided in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. Always consult your physician or a qualified healthcare provider before making any decisions regarding your health or any medical treatments discussed in this podcast. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, this podcast does not replace professional medical consultation, diagnosis, or treatment. If you have any concerns or symptoms that require medical attention, please seek advice from your healthcare provider.